Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some breaking news coming out from Russia to share with you. So we're going to talk about Dmitry Peskov in this video. He is the Kremlin spokesperson, and that is him right there in the picture for you. So we've got some information from an interview that he was in the last 24 to 48 hours. He was talking a lot about this war in Ukraine and also how the West is supporting Ukraine in this fight against Russia. And he came out mentioning in this interview, we're going to go over it, it's about 2 minutes long, and he was mentioning that Europe could face a decade of negative consequences, and that in the near future, they're going to start to experience these negative consequences for supporting the war in Ukraine. Now, essentially what he's saying here is that Europe and the United States should have never gotten involved in this war. Primarily Europe is what he's mentioning, and that they should have just let Russia steamroll Ukraine and destroy them and take them over is essentially kind of what he is saying. But at the same time, he mentions that because Europe has gotten involved in this war, they will face negative consequences moving forward. Now, most likely this would probably be economic fallout. As we do know, many nations in Europe have been suffering when it comes to economic issues, okay? We just heard recently from Germany coming out and saying they were going to be cutting off weapon supplies over to Ukraine very soon, that they were trying to restructure their budget and balance their budget as they're having economic issues. I just reported not even a month ago to you guys as well that the UK, for example, is broke and broken. Okay, their government has come out and reported they are definitely in the hole right now. So many countries, think about this, are in extreme debt. Even, for example, the United States, they go into $1 trillion of debt every 3 to 4 months. I mean, think about that. About $4 trillion a year in new debt added on top of all the taxpayers in the United States, for example. So Europe is having the same problem. Many countries over there are suffering as well. Even some major powerhouses such as Germany, for example, even France. So think about the effects that, them joining this war and spending all this money on this war. And, later on down the road, let's say this war ends. Yes, it may be helping their economy right now, spending all this money, but in the end, when they realize they spent all this money on this war, this could definitely cause major fallout in many countries around the world. And I'm not just talking about Europe, I'm also talking about the United States, because even the United States, for example, although it may be the reserve currency of the world, and they can print money like there's no tomorrow and spend money like drunken sailors, well, they've got money issues as well, and at some point, it's going to have to be dealt with. So I want to show you this interview real quick. This is from War Translated Dmitry on X. It says, Peskov threatens Europe with a decade of negative consequences for actions taken by European governments to help Ukraine retain its independence and fight back against the invaders. So 2 minutes long. Go ahead and pay attention to what he has to say, and then we'll talk about it after.
У многих людей уже возникает ощущение, что товарищи-то за рубежом вообще сошли с ума, потому что каждый день мы теперь слышим разговоры совершенно непредставимые. Они обсуждают там, каким орудием бить по России, насколько глубоко бить по России. Министр иностранных дел Евросоюза публично заявил, что многие страны разделяют мнение, что атаковать Курскую область – это нормально и правильно.
Давайте будем корректными в данном случае. Во-первых, не товарищи за границей, а товарищи на Западе. Потому что Запад – это не мировое большинство. А на Западе действительно, вы правильно сказали, министр иностранных дел Европы, он себя уже ведет как министр обороны. Причем ведет себя как ястреб. Европейские страны, ведомые Соединенными Штатами, зашлись в экстазе вот этом конфронтационном. Они отыгрывают ту роль, которая им отпущена Вашингтоном во всей этой истории. В ущерб своим собственным интересам, в ущерб кошелькам своих налогоплательщиков. И, конечно, это все будет для них иметь глубокие последствия. Они неизбежны. И в течение десятилетия грядущего мы будем свидетелями этих негативных последствий.
А не заигрались ли они уже совсем там с огнем? Ведь вот как, например, в ситуации с Донбассом, Россия достаточно долго призывала, вернее, постоянно к конструктиву, а в итоге ответила так, как многим не понравилось.
Они заигрываются, но зная решительность нашего президента, зная наш потенциал нашей страны, который оказался даже больше, чем мы предполагали, о чем говорят и темпы экономического развития, о чем говорит и военная мобилизация нашей экономики. У меня нет сомнений, что если придется, то будет сделано все для защиты наших интересов.
Риски того, что вот это постоянное ковыряние русского медведя палкой, что в итоге ответ будет таким, что мало не покажется, риски возрастают.
Он не должен быть таким, чтобы мало не показалось. Он должен быть эффективным и таким, какого требуют наши интересы.
All right, a very interesting interview, right? I'll go ahead and keep playing it while we were talking here in case you didn't see some of the subtitles there, but definitely he's talking about different things here. But if you notice, he mentioned when he's talking about Europe and he says that they could have a decade of negative consequences, that a lot of this has to do with the fact that they're spending lots of money on this war. I mean, obviously Russia's doing the same thing, right? Russia could definitely be in the same situation in the next 10 years. Although obviously they have the whole Brics thing that's in action right now, and who knows when that's going to be completed. Maybe that could help Russia out in the future. Maybe it won't, and we really don't know what the outcome of that will be when the Brics situation is actually something that unfolds in the future. But when it comes to the West, obviously they are spending a lot of money, and many European nations are suffering right now. So I kind of see where he's coming from this, but at the same time, Russia is having a lot of issues as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys something else also that I have pulled up for you. We talked about this a little bit this morning, and I wanted to bring it up one more time as I thought it has to do a lot with what Dmitry Peskov is talking about. So we're going to talk more about economics. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I an economics like analyst or a specialist or anything in that field, but it's just something that I want to discuss here that I thought about today, that I've been thinking about while we talk about economics. So Noel reports Russia's economy of death could allow it to continue the war for another 5 to 6 years, according to Le Monde. The publication analyzes 3 growth factors: massive spending on the military industry, salaries for contract soldiers, and payments to families of the deceased. They note that the death of the Russian soldier brings more financial benefit to their family, up to 11 million rubles, than if a soldier were to be alive, creating an economic bubble that sustains the war. Okay, so this is very interesting. So not only is this something that relates to Russia, but I think also Europe. When Europe is spending lots and lots of money on this war, it's keeping their economies afloat all at a time where we know the economies around the world are really not doing well. We may be told that we're having economic boom and all these different things, but reality could be completely different in the background, and the economies are not looking too good. And we continuously see signs of that. We hear of potential recession happening in the United States, and some people would argue that maybe we're already in recession, or we have been for a long time. We're on the way to a depression, and a lot of people have different views on that, right? But when it comes to Europe spending a lot of this money in Russia, or inside of Ukraine for the Russian war, then obviously what happens when the music stops? Okay, and that's ties into Russia here too when it comes to this article, right? What happens when the music stops? What happens when this war comes to an end? Are we ever going to see this war come to an end? And when it does, are we going to see major calamity and fallout among multiple nations around the world? And maybe a worldwide thing could happen too. We could have a global fallout of economic ramifications here that could affect economies all around the world, and we could have a massive economic crisis. Now, I think it's very possible, just because obviously we all know when countries spend a lot of money and there's a lot of military spending, that obviously it can upkeep economies, and that's exactly what this article is talking about. So I thought it was something very interesting that I'd share with you guys. We talked about that in this morning's update just briefly, but I wanted to discuss this a little bit more and tie that into the video that we were just talking about. Now, some people might say that Dmitry Peskov is a joke, and that Russia's a joke, and don't take anything they say seriously, and they have threats all the time and all these different warnings, but nothing ever happens. And many people will probably be right about that. But when it comes to economics, I do see where we could have major problems if this war does come to an end, because for one, major spending has been done all over the world. Many countries have spent billions and billions of dollars, maybe even at the trillions point by now, depending on which side you're talking about. And then also, when this war comes to an end, what happens after all that money has been spent and now no longer the military spending is continuing? It has now ceased to exist. I definitely think we could see major impacts around the world when it comes to spending and issues economically. But let me know what you think down below. I thought this was a very good update for you guys and some information to let you know what's going on in terms of the future as we move forward when it comes to economies and how they'll be affected by this war. in the near future and in the next decade. So let me know what you think down below. That's going to be it for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.